The wind howled as Rowan carried her through the forest, snowflakes catching in his hair, melting on her cheeks. Alara clung to his coat, her breath shallow with each contraction. The mountains swallowed the sound of their footsteps, but she could hear her baby's heartbeat thudding inside her own chest. "Hold on to me," Rowan murmured. "I am," she whispered, her voice shaking. The climb to his cabin took time, steep, winding paths that twisted between rocky ridges and dense pines. Rowan moved as if carrying her wasn't a burden at all. He never slipped, never stumbled. He kept glancing down at her, checking for pain in her expression. By the time they reached the ridge, night had begun to fall. A warm, golden glow flickered from the windows of a sturdy, hand-built cabin nestled against a cliff face. Smoke curled from the chimney, sweet cedar smoke that cut through the cold. Rowan shifted her weight and pushed the door open with his shoulder. Warmth washed over her immediately. The cabin was simple but strong, thick log walls, a large stone hearth with a roaring fire, shelves lined with jars of herbs and dried meats, a wooden table made from a fallen oak. A wolfskin rug lay beside the fire, and beyond that, a small room partitioned with a curtain. He set her down gently on a padded chair near the fire. Alara groaned when another contraction hit. Rowan knelt in front of her. "How far apart?" "I don't know, they're getting closer." He nodded and rose, pulling down blankets from a shelf. "I'll boil water, heat towels, get herbs to help with the pain." She watched him move, quick, calm, quiet. "You've done this before," she said between breaths. Rowan paused only a moment. "Once." "What happened?" she asked softly. Rowan placed a pot of water over the fire. "My wife." Alara's heart clenched. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Rowan didn't look up. "Don't be, it was years ago." "How did she?" "Childbirth." His voice softened with something raw and old. "I wasn't strong enough to save her." Alara stared at him, understanding the expression she'd seen earlier, the one she couldn't name. He wasn't just helping her. He was fighting a ghost. A contraction hit hard, slicing through her thoughts. She cried out, gripping the arms of the chair. Rowan was immediately beside her. "Breathe, you're safe here." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared." "I know," he said gently, "but you're not alone anymore." When the contraction passed, Rowan adjusted the blankets behind her back. "Alara," he said slowly, making sure she was looking at him, "I won't let anything happen to you or your baby. Not again, not on my watch." The promise in his voice was so heavy, so real it filled the cabin. She nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. For the next hour, Rowan stayed at her side. He helped her breathe through each wave of pain, helped her drink warm herbal tea and warm towels by the fire. He moved with gentle hands, steady, strong, present. Outside, the storm grew vicious. Snow slammed against the cabin walls, wind shrieked through the pines, but inside, Rowan's voice kept her anchored. "You're doing well. You're brave. I'm right here." But then a different sound cracked through the storm, the crunch of hooves on snow. Rowan's head snapped toward the door. Alara froze. "No," she whispered, panic rising. "They found me." Rowan stood up slowly, every muscle in his body tightening. "How many?" he asked quietly. "3, maybe 4. My husband's brothers and a ranch hand." The hoofbeats grew louder. "They'll take the baby," she said, voice breaking. "They think they own it. They said a child is worth more than a widow." Rowan reached for his rifle and checked the chamber with calm precision. "Alara," he said, "I'm going to step outside. You stay here. Do not move from this chair no matter what you hear." "No, Rowan, they're dangerous." "So am I." His eyes met hers, steady, unshakable. He pulled on his coat and stepped outside into the storm. Alara cried out from another contraction as the door shut behind him. She grabbed the blanket, sweat forming on her forehead despite the cold. The pain hit harder, deeper, faster. The baby was coming. But outside, muffled voices rose through the wind. "Where is she, mountain man?" a rough voice demanded. "That woman belongs to us. You're hiding her, we tracked her footprints. She owes us a baby." Rowan's reply was low and lethal. "She doesn't owe you a damn thing." Then came the sound of a fist hitting flesh. A shout. A gun cocking. Snow crunching under boots. Alara screamed as another contraction tore through her, gripping her belly with both hands. "Rowan," she whispered, tears flooding her face. "Come back, I need you." The wind howled. The men shouted. Rowan answered them with a voice colder than the storm. "You ride down this mountain," he warned, "or you don't ride away at all." One of the men laughed. "You think one man can stop us?" "No," Rowan said. "I know one man can." Gunshots exploded through the night. Alara covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming, not from the pain this time, but from fear. Sweat poured down her temples. Her breath shook. Her baby pushed downward with terrifying force. She heard Rowan's boots thudding toward the door. Then he burst inside, breath steaming, snow on his hair, blood on his sleeve, not his own. "They're gone," he said, locking the door. "They won't be back." She sobbed with relief, but was hit with another contraction so strong she nearly fell from the chair. Rowan caught her before she hit the floor. "It's time," he said softly. "I can't, Rowan, I can't." "You can," he insisted, brushing damp hair from her forehead. "And I'm right here." He helped her onto the wolfskin rug, cushioning her with blankets, keeping her near the fire's warmth. He took her hand, large, calloused, steady, and placed it against his chest. "Feel that?" he whispered. "I'm not leaving you, not now, not ever." The birth pushed her to the edge of consciousness. Pain came like claws tearing through her. Rowan held her hand through every scream, every sob, whispering to her, grounding her. "You're doing it. You're strong. One more, just one more." Hours passed like a war. And then, a cry pierced the cabin. High, sharp, new. A baby's cry. Rowan lay the tiny, red-faced newborn against Alara's chest. She laughed through tears, holding the child as if her heart were breaking open. "A little girl," Rowan said quietly, his voice thick. "She's perfect." Alara looked up at him. "Rowan, thank you." He shook his head. "Don't thank me, just rest." As she held her daughter close, Rowan sat beside her, remaining exactly where he promised he'd be. When she finally drifted into exhausted sleep, Rowan stayed awake, tending the fire, watching over both of them like a sentinel carved from stone. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside that cabin, she wasn't alone. Not anymore. Tea morning came slowly, a gray light pushing its way through the storm clouds. Snow covered the world outside the cabin, thick enough to swallow footprints, bury tracks, and hide sins. The fire in the hearth glowed low but warm, crackling softly as Rowan added another log. Alara slept on the wolfskin rug, wrapped in blankets, her baby tucked against her chest. Rowan sat a few feet away, his back against the wall, watching them with a strange softness in his eyes. He hadn't slept, not even once. Every few minutes he stood to check the window, scanning the white horizon for riders. The men who chased her, they would return. Men like that didn't give up a claim they believed they owned. He would be ready. But for now, the only sound was the baby's tiny breaths and the crackle of fire. Alara stirred first. She inhaled slowly as if surfacing from deep water. Her eyes fluttered open. The first thing she saw was her daughter sleeping peacefully, wrapped warmly, her small fingers curled around Alara's shirt. The second was Rowan, sitting quietly, his presence filling the room like a shield. "You're awake," he said gently. Her voice was barely a whisper. "How long was I asleep?" "Most of the night. You needed it." Alara shifted slightly and winced. Rowan moved to help her sit up, but he was careful, always careful, never touching her without permission. He slipped an arm behind her back only when she nodded. "Is the baby okay?" she asked anxiously. Rowan's voice softened, healthy, strong, loud. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Alara let out a breath she had been holding for 9 months. "She made it," she whispered, kissing her daughter's head. "We made it." "You did," Rowan said quietly. "I only helped." She looked at him, really looked at him. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, his coat torn from the fight, a smear of dried blood on his sleeve. His hair was damp from melted snow, and his knuckles were bruised. "You fought for us," she said, her voice trembling. Rowan looked down. "I'd do it again." "Alara," he added softly, "I'm sorry you had to go through any of that alone." She blinked hard to keep from crying. "I'm not alone anymore." He froze at that, something flickering across his face that he tried to hide. He wasn't used to someone needing him. He certainly wasn't used to someone saying it out loud. Before he could respond, the baby shifted, making a small sound like a kitten. Rowan's expression softened again. "She's hungry." Alara nodded, adjusting her daughter. Rowan immediately stood and turned away, giving her privacy. She noticed it, his respect, the space he gave her without being asked. No man had ever shown her that. When she finished feeding the baby, Rowan returned and set a bowl of warm porridge on the table beside her. "You need strength," he said. "Eat." She couldn't remember the last time someone had cooked for her. "Rowan," she whispered, "you've done more for me than anyone ever has." He shook his head. "It was nothing." "It wasn't nothing," she said firmly. "You saved us." Rowan paused, meeting her eyes. There were 1,000 things he wanted to say but didn't know how. Instead, he turned to check the fire again. Alara watched him move, studying the man whose cabin and arms had become her refuge. He was tall, broad, built like the trees outside, something unbreakable carved by weather and time. But there was something gentle in his movements, something soft he hid under silence. "Rowan," she said softly, "you didn't sleep." "I wasn't tired." She gave him a look that said she didn't believe that for a moment. He sighed, "Didn't want anything sneaking up on us." "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked quietly. Rowan didn't lie, he never would. "Yes," he said, "but not today. The storm wiped their tracks, they'll have to regroup." She swallowed hard. "You don't have to keep protecting us, I don't want to burden you." Rowan took a slow step toward her. "You're not a burden," he said, his voice low and certain. "And I'm not letting anyone touch you or that baby." Her eyes filled with tears she didn't want to shed. "But why?" she whispered. Rowan knelt in front of her, not close enough to touch, but close enough that she could see the honesty in his eyes. "Because no one helped my wife," he said. "Because I couldn't save her. Because I'll never stand by and let someone struggle alone while I'm still breathing." Alara covered her mouth, overwhelmed by his words. "And because," Rowan hesitated, lowering his gaze, "because when I found you hurt, alone, trying to survive with nothing but courage, you reminded me that maybe life wasn't done with me yet." She felt her heart shift. "Rowan." He stood quickly, embarrassed by his own honesty. "I'll check the traps," he muttered, reaching for his coat. "You rest." But Alara grabbed the sleeve of his shirt, just enough to stop him, not enough to hold him back. "Stay," she whispered. Rowan froze. Slowly, he looked down at her hand on his arm. "Alara, please." He sat beside her on the rug, not too close, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. Silence settled between them, not empty but peaceful. The baby slept between them, her tiny breath steady and safe. For the first time in years, Rowan felt something he didn't recognize at first. Belonging. For the first time in her life, Alara felt something she had only dreamed of. Safety. Hours passed gently, the storm easing outside. Rowan eventually dozed off sitting up, his head tilting slightly, breath slow and deep. Alara watched him sleep, this quiet, fierce, broken man who had protected her without hesitation. She whispered softly, not expecting him to hear. "We're not leaving you, Rowan." His eyelids flickered, though he didn't wake. Outside, the clouds began to part. But far down the mountain trail, hidden by the fatting storm, 4 riders were making their way back up, slow, steady, determined. They were returning, and Rowan would face them all.